Welcome, everyone. My name is Jed Distler, and you are listening to The Piano Maven, your friendly podcast guide to piano recordings. I've recently re-listened to a recording of Rachmaninov's third piano concerto that used to always hold my attention, and I still think it's a very compelling and individual interpretation. It was recorded in 1968, and it features the pianist Alexis Weissenberg with the Chicago Symphony under the direction of Georges Prêtre. Let's talk about the orchestra first. They are perfectly balanced in every section, with especially strong brass, and the woodwinds are balanced forward, and every first desk soloist is absolutely wonderful. Themes that are stated either in the sections or by the soloists are always superbly articulated. I would guess that the oboe soloist at the start of the second movement is Ray Still. It's played just gorgeously. Anyway, this was the Chicago Symphony in the era of Jean Martinon's music directorship, and they had not lost one iota of the virtuosity and ensemble sophistication that made this orchestra famous under Fritz Reiner's music directorship in the 50s and early 60s. Alexis Weissenberg's approach to the Rachmaninov Third falls in the Vladimir Horowitz tradition, in that his sonority is essentially lean and gaunt and quite scintillating. He cuts through the thick textures, kind of like roto-rooter going through a clogged drain. And while there is tremendous drive and unrelenting energy to Weissenberg's pianism and a real edge to how he handles the climaxes, there are also many moments where he will stretch a theme almost to its breaking point, yet somehow the music doesn't stop dead in its tracks. He does not quite have Horowitz's singing tone, but his stabbing accents and firm grasp of chords flying in all directions, I think, more than compensate. I've always found in Alexis Weissenberg's interpretations of almost all repertoire a kind of curious synthesis of both violence and tenderness, and that especially applies to his Rachmaninov Third. And unlike many recordings of this concerto from the 50s and 60s that incorporated cuts, Weissenberg presents the work complete. The notion of cuts originally came from the composer himself, and he sanctioned certain cuts. And indeed, Vladimir Horowitz interpolated cuts in his first two commercial recordings of the concerto. Earl Wild took cuts, and so did Byron Janis and Witold Malkuzinski, many other pianists. Anyway, if I had to limit myself to just one Rachmaninoff Third, I'm not sure I would choose the Weissenberg Prêtre Chicago recording as my absolute first choice. Maybe I would have in 1968, but there have been so many great ones ever since. I'm thinking of Zoltan Koshis and Martha Argerich and Stephen Huff. But I definitely put this 1968 recording in my top 10 list of Rachmaninoff Third Concerto recordings to consider and to recommend. This is Jed Distler, and you've been listening to the Piano Maven podcast. Thank you for tuning in, and happy listening.